Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to be reviewing Too Many Bones, a dice builder RPG from Chip Theory Games. There's a lot going on in Too Many Bones, so I'm going to give you the quickest overview I know how that still kind of captures some of the essence of the game. Too Many Bones is exactly what it says in the box. It's a dice builder RPG. So what that means is that you and the characters that you play, so you can either play pure solo, and there are solo event cards that you can use to build out a pure one-player game, or, because it's cooperative, you can choose to play as more than one gearlock if you're playing by yourself. And that's really fun because each of these gearlocks has different special abilities. So Boomer throws bombs, hence the name Boomer. Tantrum is a little bit of a berserker. You have to manage his rage level. Patches is a healer who can also hurt. And Pickett is a tank who makes a really good solo character or companion to anybody else that you're trying out. So in this dice builder RPG, your goal is to make enough progress within a limited number of days within the game to be able to confront and defeat a tyrant. There's several different tyrants in the game, and each is going to give you a different difficulty level, game length, and mix of enemies who might be in the stacks of enemy chips that you're going to fight. Each tyrant also has a different fighting style, so that when you do get to confront them, it's going to feel different depending on who you're going up against. To make progress, you're going to have to gain progress through encounter cards. So this is just all the encounter cards in a pile, but essentially every encounter card is going to give you a choice to make, and then some rewards or consequences depending on the choice and whether you succeed or fail at the challenge that ensues. So in every game, things start pretty easy. You're leaving Obendar, you're awake, and you have to make some decisions about how you're going to spend your last night, given that you're not going to sleep. So you have to decide if you're going to train a little bit more, or if you're going to go shake somebody down for some loot. So on the back, it's going to show you the consequences of those choices. If you choose to train, you get 2 training points. If you choose to shake somebody down, you get 1 training point, 1 loot card. And either way, you make 1 progress. And these progress markers are key to eventually making it to the end of the game. Training points are absolutely crucial in Too Many Bones because, let's just get Pickett's dice. Every single character in here, they're all called gearlocks. They're a fantasy race that was made up for this game, is going to have their own set of unique dice. But depending on the upgrades that you choose throughout the game, you're going to get to put dice in these various slots. So if you just want to upgrade your health stat, you'd end up putting a die here. Same for dexterity. That's the number of dice that you can roll on a given turn. Attack and defense, you have to roll to see if you're going to actually get to increase those stats, but basically you're going to be trying to put dice here to bump up your basic role-playing stats. However, that's not the only place you're going to want to use dice. This entire mat down here is a bunch of skill trees that give Pickett really cool things to do in battle. So basically every time you get to get a training point, something really cool happens. And there will be a corresponding die for your character for every single slot on here. In order to see how well you do with the dice that you have for skills, you're going to have to roll them, which can lead to dice being exhausted, sometimes without getting the benefits that you wanted, but things generally tend to turn out pretty awesome. So the other thing that's very neat about each of the gearlocks is that this is what Pickett's different skill trees look like. You know, he has some command skills. He has some skills that have to do with him gaining defense, using it as attack. There's a lot of different things that he can do. But every gearlock plays extremely differently, and so playing each one gives you a completely different gaming experience. So really, between tyrants and gearlocks, this one does not get old. The other thing that makes Too Many Bones interesting is the mechanism from which it gets its name, which is every time you roll dice, so let's say I just have normal attack and defense dice. I have rolled a bone. How convenient. So when you roll bones, that's essentially a failed roll for the purposes of that roll during your turn, but you also have what's called a backup plan, where you can choose to slot bones up here. And if you gain a certain amount of them, you get some really interesting skills. So deciding how many bones to accumulate, rolling dice that you don't necessarily need in hopes of getting bones for your backup plan, all of these things also enter your strategic play. So when you get training points, they do really amazing things for you over the course of the game. It's also worth just talking about battle for a moment. So this is the battle mat. You're going to have an initiative track here, which some gearlocks can manipulate, but generally you and the enemies are going to have a turn order. And depending on where you're at in the game, your skill level, how far along you are, you're going to draw combinations of 1, 5, and eventually 20 point baddies to go up against on the mat. Enemies will populate the board here, melee or ranged, and in the order of these various lanes. Your gear locks are going to get to come in on this side of the map, and what's going to ensue is an intense tactical battle where you are using all of your abilities, some of which let you move around the map, some of which let you do special kinds of damage. Meanwhile, you'd be going up against enemies who also have special abilities, and there are so many that it would take a long time to list them here. But basically, you can expect really intense tactical combat, trying to roll the dice so that you'll get results in your favor, and generally a lot of excitement and drama. And if that wasn't enough for you, Too Many Bones also has lots of great loot cards. So there's normal loot where you just get a cool item. There's also something called Trove Loot, which is locked. So during rest phases at the end of turns, there's actually a mini lock-picking game that you can play to try to unlock your Trove Loot. And in some encounters, there's another mini game called Dangerous Darts, which I think is hilarious, and I hope you will play this game to discover it for yourself. So in Too Many Bones, you're going to play as a Gearlock character, or maybe more than one, upgrade that character, fight battles, make choices, progress towards a tyrant, and hopefully battle them to win the day. And in the meantime, you get to play fun minigames, gather awesome loot, and relish the upgrades that you can give to your character. That's basically what happens in Too Many Bones, and if you want an in-depth tutorial, that's actually something that I'm planning for my own channel, Beyond Solitaire. So now for some final thoughts. Hopefully it's pretty obvious that I really like Too Many Bones. And you know what? I actually avoided playing it for a long time because it just seemed like there was a lot going on and I wasn't really sure how it was going to click. Then I started playing it and man, it is a really great gaming experience. So the first thing that's wonderful about it is the tactical decision making in the game is fabulous. I really enjoy the close quarters, the difficult positioning, the dealing with enemy abilities, using your own abilities, all the things that the battle mat offers. Battling in Too Many Bones is really good fun, and every battle, even if you lose, is full of excitement, and it leaves you thinking really hard about how best to approach a problem. And that leads me to the second thing I really like about Too Many Bones, which is upgrading the gear locks. Those skill trees on the gear lock mats are super interesting, and there's always a different direction to go. You'll definitely end up with some favorites, but I really like getting new dice, upgrading my skills, training and getting something new to try, and generally trying to come up with the best combination of things that are going to make a gear lock really powerful and interesting to play. So not only are the skill trees for each gear lock individually super interesting, but each of the gear locks is so different, and there are 4 in the base box for Too Many Bones, as well as several that you can get separately. Each of those gear locks is just so different from all of the other ones, which means that learning a new gear lock is almost like playing a new game. And learning which gear locks work really well together in combination is also super exciting. The depth that this game can produce in terms of developing characters, finding good combinations, developing skill trees is just out of this world. And I'm honestly really impressed. The gameplay also comes with a lot of really nice flavor. The Gearlocks are actually a really fun fantasy people who were invented by Chip Theory Games. Their lore is cool. And although I kind of worried I would think it was cheesy at first, I actually really like the cute, humorous, light text that's on all of the encounter cards. It's really well done. And it really does make me feel like I'm on an adventure and like maybe I have a little bit of an attitude. All of the little side games also really add a lot. I think that lockpicking for Trove Loot is super enjoyable. And I also absolutely like it when I get a chance to play Dangerous Darts, which is just like a stupid game about throwing darts at an opponent, and then each of you just tries to knock the other one out. Would I play it in real life? Maybe. And of course, since this is a Chip Theory game, I can't go without mentioning the components. The poker chips are clinky and satisfying. The dice are chunky and nice. The neoprene mats that you put dice into and that you battle on are phenomenal. I really have no complaints about the quality of this game. In fact, quite the opposite. It feels like a luxury item when I play. That said, there are a few things that may make Too Many Bones not a great fit for you. One is that I do think that the barrier to entry for this game is high. It takes a while to really get used to this game. There are a lot of rules. I do think the rulebook could have been written a bit better. And because each gear lock plays so differently, you basically need an entire help sheet to tell you recommended builds, what all of their dice do, basically everything that a gear lock is capable of. And this is a lot of information. I'm glad it's here, I really appreciate it. But I think that Too Many Bones can really seem like a lot. And there are places where it's hard to understand what to do within the structures of the rules. The other thing I will mention, because this is a Chip Theory game, is price point. Too Many Bones is extremely expensive, especially if you don't live in the United States. Chip Theory Games is basically a boutique publisher. They create very luxury games, but they do it according to their own standards and they do it in-house. You can't just go to your game store and buy a Chip Theory game for the most part. These games don't go into retail. They have to be bought through the Chip Theory site, and that is done for a not insignificant amount of money. Now, I have never regretted a dime that I spent on a Chip Theory game ever, but if you don't have a lot of money, I would think twice before just going all in on something like this, because it's a lot. That said, I really can't help but be impressed with Too Many Bones. It's just such a good game. And to me, it's really an achievement in gaming. The amount of depth of gameplay that you can achieve with this game is something that continually surprises me and that really impresses me. So for all of the Chip Theory rules difficulty, occasional bloat, if you feel that it's overproduced, then that's, perhaps a legit opinion. The creativity that goes into these games and the thought and the intensity are things that I really can't overlook as somebody who reviews games. I wish that more games were this creative and thoughtful. And I really wish that more creative and thoughtful games pulled things off this well. I'm a huge fan of Hoplomachus. If you watch my reviews, you know that. But while Hoplomachus is absolutely my favorite Chip Theory game for pick up and play, I really do think that Too Many Bones might be the greater achievement as a game. And because of that appreciation, even though you could say that it's not perfect, I can't help but give it a 10 out of 10 and a Dice Tower seal of excellence. Happy gaming.